And as it's a 30-minute one, there isn't an opportunity for a wind-up. Hannah Bardell to move the motion.
Thank you, Dr Huck. It's a pleasure to move the motion, and I'm very grateful to the Backbench Business Committee for granting this short debate and to the Minister for responding. And I'm sure there might be other colleagues who will want to make an intervention along the way on this debate on the importance of credit unions during a cost of living crisis. And first off, I'd like to declare an interest as someone who saves and borrows with credit unions, including my own in West Lothian, the great West Lothian Credit Union. And I want to start my contribution by paying tribute, a passionate tribute, to West Lothian Credit Union, their chair, Nancy McGilvery, and her team, who work and fight tirelessly to develop their services and support our local community through that local credit union. I'd also like to thank my own team for the work they've done to prepare for today and the work they do every day for our Livingston constituents throughout this cost of living crisis. I'm sure all of us here in the House are very conscious of the pressures on our constituents, but also the work that our teams are doing for us. In particular, Marcus, Yvonne and Adam, who have had a close hand in today's preparations. And similarly, I want to pay tribute to my constituency colleague in the Scottish Parliament, Angela Constance, the member of the Scottish Parliament for the Amman Valley, and her team, who've worked closely and fought for our local credit union over many years. And my honourable friend for Glasgow South West wasn't able to stay in this debate, but he did want me to mention the work that Pollock Credit Union do in his constituency, and the fact that there is so much great work being done by credit unions with affordable food larders and community supermarkets, particularly a programme in his Glasgow South West constituency. The role credit unions play in supporting hard-working families across Scotland and the rest of the United Kingdom during this unprecedented cost of living crisis is indisputable. Unlike the high street banks, credit unions are run and owned by their members and distinctly operate under a cooperative principle. And while credit unions are a relatively new form of banking in historic terms, first established in the UK in the 1960s, their founding principles of mutual cooperation and collective benefit were born out of the friendly society movement of the 18th century, and they even predate the creation of the welfare state. My own grandparents were active members in the cooperative movement in West Lothian and beyond, and the importance in our communities is long held and an important tradition. As we become increasingly globalised and vested interest creep further and further into our lives, the role of credit unions and the role of cooperatives, I feel, is increasingly important and potentially under threat. Now, the formation of the first credit union in the UK was inspired by those in Ireland. The first recorded credit union in the UK was formed in 1960 in Derry, Northern Ireland, and that union now has over 30,000 members. In Scotland and other parts of the UK, several credit unions were established by immigrants who came to the UK with very little, but simply wished to tackle the inequalities and the financial hardship of others. What a worthy cause. Over the last 50 years, credit unions have grown to provide loans and savings to more than 1.2 million people, Dr Huck, across England, Scotland and Wales. And I am incredibly proud of West Lothian Credit Union, and I'm in awe of the work that they do in supporting my community. I have seen it firsthand, and I once again pay tribute to it. They offer a range of services from banking to funeral plans. Their services are available to all who live or work across West Lothian. And as colleagues will know, credit unions are regulated by both the Financial Conduct Authority and the Prudential Regulation Authority. The objectives of all credit unions are simply this: to promote thrift among their members by the accumulation of their savings, the creation of sources of credit for the benefit of its members and fair and reasonable interest, the use and control of member savings for their mutual benefit, and the training and education of members in the wise use of money and in the management of financial affairs. So whilst these objectives may sound simple, I think many of the high street lenders and other financial service providers would do very well if they simply applied the same ethical standards. Not only would they be better viewed by the public, I would suggest, but they would also be able to act in the public interest rather than so often what we see in private profit. Credit unions, for example, work with many employers to set up payroll savings schemes for their employees, and many credit unions operate school credit unions, encouraging a savings habit amongst young students, as well as giving them life skills in operating a cash collection. And my own credit union have done fantastic work in my own constituency. These are fantastic initiatives which help foster better relationships between individuals and their employers, but they also help create greater educational awareness about the importance of money for young people. Despite these successes. More employers could be encouraged, I feel, to participate in payroll schemes for their employees. And similarly, operating school credit unions can be a very costly process for which there is currently very limited funding available. And I hope the Minister can perhaps give some views and thoughts on that. There is a clear need to provide better support to our children and financial education, not just being done by banks. And it's one of many ways that we should be doing more to ensure every child has the best opportunity in life. We're already seeing change for credit unions. For instance, the community banking platform Engage has partnered with 10 credit unions to deliver its faster payment service to their nearly 100,000 customers. This is a great example of how technology can help, and I note with interest the article shared by Electronic Payments International. The CEO of Kingdom Community Bank, based in Glenrothes, Sophia Dogan, highlighted that cost for their service was less than 50% than their bank was preparing to charge, and payments would now be able to be sent to their members' accounts in minutes. And the Bank of England's latest report in April this year shows that the number of adult members in the UK credit unions has risen to an all-time high of 1.98 million. The starkest increase was in loans to borrowers, which has jumped by a staggering 18.9% to £785 million last year in England alone. I'd be happy to give way.
I think it's worth reflecting on the point my honourable friend was just making there, that yes, people borrowing with credit unions has increased, and that's because, for one part, certainly we're seeing such high interest rates from banks, from high street banks, your kind of more typical lenders. So yes, credit unions are certainly playing a far more vital role during this Tory-induced cost of living crisis.
Yes, she makes an excellent point, and perhaps she has foreseen what I might be about to say, but I think it's a really important point to highlight, because whilst it is welcome that more people are using credit unions, the root cause of that and the reason for that is increasingly concerning. Because the cost of living crisis has placed a huge economic squeeze on hard-working families. A report from Responsible Finance has found that 41% of people borrowed to pay for essential bills, 41% to pay for bills and expenses, while 20% borrowed to pay for appliances and white goods. An analysis from Freedom Finance finds that credit unions are lending record sums to UK borrowers following the surge in borrowing costs. Again, great news that people are getting their money from responsible borrowing through credit unions, but concerning that they're having to borrow to such high levels just to get by. Total loans exceed £2 billion for the first time by the end of 2022, an annual increase of £251 million, or 15% of the course of 2022. Time and time again, evidence shows that increases to the cost of living disproportionately impacts those who are the poorest in our society. And these individuals are often helped by credit unions, but some fall victim to unscrupulous lending practices, such as high-interest payday loans, simply to be able to meet basic needs. The Freedom Finance Credit Monitor has revealed that the average household quoted on credit cards rose to the highest level since 1998 last year, reaching 22.8% at the end of December. And I think we can all reflect that if things worsen and interest rates go higher, more and more people are going to be tipped over the edge. More borrowers, I'll be happy to give way.
For securing the debate and making such a powerful speech. On that point, the Barnsley Chronicle reported a report from the local council last week which showed that 1 in 5 residents in Barnsley have debts now that overtake their income. Obviously, people are really struggling with the cost of living. Food has gone up 90%, and we've seen similar increases in gas and electric. So with that situation, not just with the rising cost of living, but the sheer rising level of debt, obviously credit unions play a huge role, but they're not always known about. We've got a fantastic credit union, I'll pay tribute to the one in my constituency in Wonwell, but residents don't always know they can access that affordable credit. And so will she join with me in sort of encouraging people to raise awareness of this?
I agree with everything that my honourable friend has said, and part of the reason for today's debate was to raise awareness of credit unions, as well as recognising the challenges that we are facing and that many of our constituents are facing. And there are an estimated 20 million consumers in the UK who are underserved and unable to access credit from high street banks. And that is compounded, frankly, Chair, by the number of bank branches that are closing. Everybody, I think, across this House has been outraged by the behaviour of some of the banks and the closing of local branches and the cutting off of so many of our vulnerable and rural communities. The Scottish Government is committed to ensuring credit unions continue to be able to carry out their vital role in supporting communities across Scotland. In 2020, the Scottish Government established the Credit Union Resilience Loan Fund and the Third Sector Resilience Fund, which provided grants and loans totalling more than £20 million, made available to be shared to more than 100 credit unions across the country. And the Scottish Government also actively ran a People Not Profit campaign in 2018, encouraging people to consider joining a credit union. Examples of what we can do with the limited powers that we currently have in Scotland. In stark contrast, the UK Government has been slow to respond to the cost of living crisis, and many households are desperately struggling. Many low-income households still do not meet the affordability criteria for many lenders, and I have to say I was struck by one of my colleagues who spoke powerfully in the Prime Minister's questions the other day about her own experience of not being able to, when her income dropped, not being able to access funding. And that just shows the scale of what people are facing. Respectfully, credit unions will never be able to plug the gap, and the UK Government need to take urgent action to address the cost of living crisis. There is an increasing need for these services. And the Government must recognise that the increased demand for credit unions has also been driven by the closure of banks and post offices, especially in rural areas. So the UK Government urgently need to support credit unions further and look at ways in which they can better support them. The UK Government should in particular consider funding specific outcomes, for example, promoting financial education classes for school children more than is already available, and supporting individual credit union projects where they have a clear community focus. Government should continue to fund and expand initiatives that increase access to affordable credit, such as the no-interest loan scheme that is being led by Fair for All Finance, not an easy one to say, empowering local communities to develop and deliver affordable and responsible finance. The tragedy of financial ruin is something that my constituency team and I have seen time and time again, Chair, from our casework to the constituency advice surgeries that we hold. And I know that there has been much work done by many people in this place, and indeed the Government, on irresponsible lending. But it is incumbent upon us that we make sure credit unions can not only survive but thrive. And I hope the Minister will say a few words about his Government will do that. And earlier this year, I believe he said, when responding in the Chamber in his position, that there are exactly 650 constituencies. Would it not be wonderful if every one of them had a thriving credit union? I completely agree, and I would hope that members present here and all those across this place continue to work towards achieving that goal by providing credit unions with the help and support that they need in order to better empower our local communities and help address the many inequalities our constituents face. Once again, I pay tribute to Nancy McGilvery and her team at West Lothian Credit Union for all they do to support our Livingston and West Lothian communities. And I look forward to continuing to support them and the work that they do. Thank you.
Andrew Griffith.
It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, Dr Huck. And may I congratulate the honourable member for Livingston for